You know that feeling when your team loses and it ruins your entire week? When you can't even look at social media because seeing the other team celebrate makes you physically angry? When people who don't watch sports ask why you're in such a bad mood and you can't even explain it because they wouldn't understand? Yeah, if you just watched the Super Bowl and you're still thinking about it days later, welcome. Because what psychologists just discovered about sports fan grief explains everything about who you actually are. Today, I'm breaking down what your favorite team's loss reveals about your identity. And this goes way deeper than just caring about a game. Here's the thing that'll mess with your head. When your team loses, your brain processes it the same way it processes personal failure. It's not metaphorical pain, it's actual neurological distress. Psychologists call this identity fusion. Your sense of self has become so intertwined with your team that their loss feels like your loss. Their failure feels like your failure. Neuroscientists using brain scans found that when fans watch their team lose, the same areas light up as when they experience personal rejection or embarrassment. You're not being dramatic. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between the Chiefs losing and you losing. Think about it. You didn't play a single down. You weren't on that field. You had zero control over the outcome. But when the final whistle blew and your team lost, you felt it in your chest. Some of you couldn't sleep that night. Some of you are still replaying mistakes in your head. Some of you feel genuinely depressed. And people who don't get it think you're crazy, but you're not. You're experiencing what researchers call vicarious identity investment. You've invested part of your identity into something external, and when that external thing fails, part of you feels like it failed too. But here's where it gets darker. The reason you care this much about your team reveals something about what's missing in your actual life. And I know that sounds harsh, but stay with me. Psychologist Dr. Daniel Wan studied sports fandom for decades and found that people who are most devastated by their team's losses often score highest on measures of social identity need. Translation? They need to belong to something bigger than themselves, and their team became that thing. When everything else in life feels uncertain, unstable, or lonely, your team is the one constant, the one tribe that can't reject you, the one identity that's guaranteed. Now let me tell you what's really happening when a sports loss hits you this hard. It's exposing how much of your self-worth is tied to external validation. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If your team winning makes you feel like a winner, and your team losing makes you feel like a loser, then your sense of self isn't actually coming from you. It's coming from 53 guys you've never met doing a thing you have no control over. And that's a dangerous way to build identity, because external validation is unstable. It can be taken away. It will be taken away. And when it is, you're left with the question, who am I without this? There's actually a concept in psychology called basking in reflected glory. It's when people tie their identity to successful people or teams so they can feel successful by association. You see it everywhere. Fans wearing jerseys saying, "We won," when the team wins. But notice what happens when they lose. Suddenly it's "they lost," not "we." The psyche protects itself by distancing when there's failure, but claiming ownership when there's success. But the people who are truly devastated by losses, they can't distance. They've fused so deeply that the loss sticks to them like their own. But here's what nobody tells you about sports fan identity. It's not actually about the sport. It's about belonging. It's about being part of something that transcends your individual existence. In a world where community is dying, where people move cities every few years, where friendships are surface level and work relationships are transactional, your team is the one constant tribe. You could move across the country and still be connected to millions of strangers who bleed the same colors you do. That's not pathetic. That's human. We're wired for tribal belonging. And in modern society, sports teams are one of the last remaining tribes. Psychologist Dr. Robert Cialdini found that sports fans experience genuine increases in testosterone and self-esteem when their team wins. Their mood improves, their confidence spikes, they walk taller. But the flip side is just as real. When their team loses, cortisol increases, mood crashes. Some studies show increased domestic violence rates and even heart attacks in cities after devastating sports losses. This isn't trivial. This is identity-level psychological impact. Your team's performance is directly affecting your biochemistry, your hormones, your health, your relationships. And here's the paradox that defines intense sports fandom. The deeper you invest in your team, the more meaning you get from wins, but the more devastating the losses become. It's a high-risk, high-reward emotional strategy, and most fans will tell you it's worth it. Because the moments of victory, the championships, the unforgettable games, they create memories and emotions that last a lifetime. But those same fans will also tell you about the losses that still haunt them years later, the games they can't forget, the plays they still see in their sleep, the what-ifs that never go away. So what does your team's loss reveal about your identity? It reveals how much of yourself you've outsourced to something you can't control. It reveals your need for belonging, for tribe, for mattering. It reveals that you're human, searching for meaning in a world that often feels meaningless, and there's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing you need to hear. Your team's loss doesn't make you a loser. Their failure isn't your failure. Their championship drought isn't your personal drought. You are not your team. You're someone who loves a team. And that's different. Because here's the truth that sports teaches if you let it. Loss is inevitable. Failure is guaranteed. Even the greatest dynasties fall. Even the best teams lose eventually. And if your entire identity crumbles when they do, you've built your sense of self on sand. But if you can love your team fully, invest emotionally, care deeply, and still maintain a core sense of self that exists independent of their success, then you've learned something most people never do. You've learned how to be attached without being dependent, how to care without being consumed, how to belong without losing yourself. So if you're still hurting from your team's loss, that's okay. Feel it, grieve it, be upset. But then ask yourself, what is this really about? Is it about a game? Or is it about something deeper? Is it about them? Or is it about you? Because your team will play again next season. They'll win some and lose some. But you only get one life. And spending it emotionally devastated by things you can't control isn't living. It's suffering. Tell me in the comments, does your team's performance affect your mood for days? Hit subscribe if this made you think differently about why you care so much. And if you want to understand more about identity and belonging, the next video breaks down why some people need nothing from anyone, while others need everything. Click it. You need to see this.